I pushed open the front door after a 12-hour shift at the hospital. My scrubs still smelling faintly of disinfectant. My feet aching in my sneakers. All I wanted was a hot shower and maybe some leftover pasta from the fridge. Instead, I found my older sister Jessica sitting on our living room couch like she owned the place, her husband Brandon beside her, and my mom perched on the armchair looking uncomfortable. Jessica smiled at me. That same smile Shed perfected in childhood when she was about to get her way. Mom cleared her throat and said the words that would change everything. Jessica needs to stay here for a while, family support during a rough patch. You can take the guest room, or you can move out. Before I could even process that, Jessica added brightly, "Great if you're out by the weekend, actually." I stood there in the doorway, keys still in my hand, unable to believe what I was hearing. 3 years. I had lived here for 3 years, paying rent, covering bills, taking care of Mom after Dad died, and just like that, I was being pushed aside for the sister who barely called on birthdays. The silence in the room after Jessica's comment felt thick enough to choke on. I looked at Mom, waiting for her to say something, to tell Jessica that was ridiculous, that I lived here too. But Mom just looked down at her hands, fidgeting with her wedding ring the way she always did when she was stressed. "Mom," I said quietly, "can we talk about this?" "There's nothing to talk about, Marissa," Mom said, and her voice was cold in a way I'd never heard before. "Jessica needs family right now. That's what families do. They help each other." I wanted to scream. I wanted to remind her of every single thing I'd done for the past 3 years. But Jessica was already standing up, stretching like Shed just arrived home from vacation. "I'm exhausted from the drive," she announced. "Brandon, honey, can you start bringing in our stuff?" Brandon, who had been sitting there silently the entire time looking vaguely uncomfortable, nodded and headed outside. I watched him go, then turned back to Mom. "I've been helping you for 3 years," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I moved back after Dad died. You were so depressed you couldn't get out of bed. I took care of everything, the bills, the house, the cooking, everything, and now you're just kicking me out." "Don't be dramatic," Jessica cut in before Mom could respond. "Nobody's kicking you out. You have options. The guest room is perfectly nice." The guest room was barely 10 feet by 10 feet, with a twin bed and no closet. My current room, the one I'd lived in for 3 years, was the master bedroom suite Dad had converted for me when I moved back. It had its own bathroom, a walk-in closet, enough space to actually breathe. "That room is mine," I said firmly. "I pay rent for that room." Well, pay rent too," Jessica said dismissively. "Actually, pay more than you've been paying." "Want we, Mom?" Mom looked up then, and something in her expression made my stomach drop. She looked almost relieved. Like Jessica had offered her a solution she'd been hoping for. Jessica said she and Brandon would help more with expenses. Mom said quietly, "More than you've been able to manage." The words hit me like a slap. I'd been paying 2/3 of the household expenses for 3 years. I worked extra shifts at the hospital, picked up overtime whenever I could, all to make sure Mom was comfortable, that the bills were paid, that there was food in the fridge. I'd given up my apartment, my independence, my social life, and it still wasn't enough. Over the next 2 days, I barely spoke to anyone. I went to work, came home, and avoided the areas of the house where Jessica and Brandon had spread out like they'd always lived there. Jessica was already redecorating, talking about paint colors and new furniture. Brandon mostly stayed quiet, though I caught him looking at me a few times with something that might have been sympathy. On the second night, I couldn't sleep. I got up around 2 in the morning to get water and heard voices coming from the kitchen. I stopped in the hallway, recognizing Jessica's voice immediately. She was on the phone. "It worked," she was saying, her tone gleeful. "I told Mom we'd cover Marissa's rent portion plus extra. She totally bought it. Marissa's moving out this weekend, and we'll have the whole place basically to ourselves." There was a pause while whoever was on the other end responded. "Of course I'm not actually paying more," Jessica continued, laughing. "Are you kidding? Brandon doesn't even have a job right now. But Mom doesn't need to know that yet. By the time she figures it out, We'll already be settled in, and she won't want to make us leave. You know how she is. She hates confrontation. I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart pounding. Jessica had lied. Shed manipulated Mom, and Mom had believed her because she wanted to believe her. Because Jessica had always been the one who got away with everything. I went back to my room and started packing. By Friday afternoon, I'd found a studio apartment across town. It was tiny, barely 400 square feet, but it was clean and affordable, and most importantly, it was mine. I'd signed the lease that morning and arranged to move in over the weekend. When I told Mom, she barely looked up from her magazine. "That's probably for the best," she said quietly. "Jessica really does need the space." I wanted to tell her what I'd overheard. I wanted to warn her that Jessica was lying, that there was no extra money coming, that she was being used. But something in Mom's face stopped me. She looked almost desperate to believe that Jessica cared, that Jessica would stay, that she wouldn't be left alone again. So I just nodded and went back to packing. Jessica found me in my room on Saturday morning, boxes stacked everywhere, my life reduced to labeled containers and garbage bags. "Oh good, you're really doing it," she said cheerfully, leaning against the doorframe. "I wasn't sure you'd actually go through with it. Thanks for being so understanding, Marissa. Family's important, you know." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw nothing but smug satisfaction. She'd gotten exactly what she wanted, and she didn't feel even a tiny bit guilty about it. "Yeah," I said flatly. "Family's real important." By Sunday evening, I was moved out. Mom hugged me briefly at the door, but it felt perfunctory, like she was going through the motions. Jessica waved from the porch, her smile wide and victorious. "Thanks for understanding," she called out. "Well, have you over for dinner sometime?" I drove away and didn't look back. My studio apartment was on the third floor of an older building with no elevator. By the time I'd hauled all my boxes up the stairs, I was exhausted and sweating despite the cool October air. But when I finally closed the door behind me and looked around at my new space, I felt something unexpected: relief. It was small, sure. The kitchen was basically a hot plate and a mini fridge. The bathroom was so tiny I could touch both walls while sitting on the toilet. But it was quiet. It was peaceful. And nobody could take it away from me. I spent the next week settling in, working my regular shifts at the hospital, and trying not to think too much about Mom or Jessica. At work, my friend Angela noticed immediately that something was wrong. "You look exhausted," she said during our lunch break on Tuesday. "More than usual, I mean. What's going on?" I told her everything. Angela listened with growing outrage, her sandwich forgotten on the table between us. "Your sister is a piece of work," she said when I finished. "And your mom just went along with it? After everything you've done for her. She wants to believe Jessica will stay," I said quietly. "After Dad died, she was so lonely. I think she's afraid of being alone again. So she's willing to throw you out to keep Jessica around? That's messed up, Marissa." I couldn't argue with that. I'd blocked Jessica's number immediately after moving out. But I kept Mom's contact information active. Part of me kept hoping she'd call, that she'd realize what she'd done, and apologize. But days passed, and my phone stayed silent. Meanwhile, according to the neighborhood gossip chain that Angela somehow had access to, things at the house were changing fast. Jessica had apparently redecorated my old room completely, throwing out the things I'd left behind because I didn't have space for them in the studio: photos of Dad and me, books I'd been collecting since college, little mementos from my nursing school graduation, all gone. She put it all in garbage bags and left them on the curb, Angela reported, shaking her head. "Your neighbor Mrs. Chen saw the whole thing. She tried to save some of it, but the garbage truck came before she could grab everything." I felt sick but not surprised. Jessica had never cared about sentimentality. 2 weeks after I moved out, Mom called. I was so shocked to see her name on my phone screen that I almost didn't answer. But I did, my heart pounding. "Hi Mom, Marissa." Her voice was strained. "I need to ask you something. Not an apology, not even a question about how I was doing. Just straight to whatever she needed." "What is it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. The utility bill came and it's really high this month. Almost double what it usually is. I was wondering if maybe you could help with it? Just this once. I closed my eyes. Of course. Jessica wasn't paying anything, and now Mom was stuck with bills she couldn't afford alone. How much? I asked. $340. I can cover most of it, but I'm about $80 short. $80. It wasn't much, but it was the principle of the thing. I was barely making ends meet in my tiny studio, and Jessica was living in my old room, using the AC and hot water like it was free, and not contributing a dime. But it was Mom asking, and despite everything, I couldn't let her utilities get shut off. "I'll send it," I said quietly. "Oh, thank you, sweetheart. I knew I could count on you." She hung up quickly, probably feeling guilty. I transferred the money immediately and sat on my futon staring at my bank account balance, which was significantly smaller than it should have been. The next day, Jessica somehow found out. She called from Brandon's phone, which I hadn't blocked yet, and I answered without thinking. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" She screamed before I could even say hello. "Jessica, stop trying to make Mom dependent on you. We're taking care of her now. She doesn't need your charity." She called me. I said, my own anger rising. She needed help with the utility bill. The bill that's so high because you're running the AC constantly and taking hour-long baths. "Where's all that extra money you promised to pay, Jessica?" The line went silent for a moment. "That's none of your business," she finally said, her voice tight. "Just stay out of our lives, Marissa. You're not needed anymore." She hung up. I sat there shaking, equal parts furious and hurt. Angela's words from weeks earlier echoed in my head. "Your sister is a piece of work." She had no idea how right she was. 3 weeks after Id moved out, my phone rang at 11:30 on a Tuesday night. I was already in bed, exhausted from a double shift. But when I saw it was Mom, I answered immediately. "Mom, what's wrong, Marissa?" Her voice was thick with tears. "I need you to come over, please, right now. What happened? Are you okay? Just please come. I can't do this over the phone." She hung up before I could ask anything else. I threw on jeans and a sweatshirt and drove to the house, my mind racing with possibilities. Was she hurt? Had something happened with Jessica or Brandon? When I arrived, Mom was sitting at the kitchen table in her bathrobe, her laptop open in front of her, tears streaming down her face. Jessica and Brandon were nowhere to be seen. "Mom, what's going on?" I sat down across from her, reaching for her hand. She turned the laptop toward me. It was her bank account page. "I checked my balance tonight because I was going to pay some bills tomorrow," she said, her voice shaking. $5,000 is missing, Marissa." $5,000 just gone. I felt my stomach drop. "When? How?" "Transfers. 3 of them over the past 2 weeks. I didn't authorize them. I didn't even know they'd happened until tonight. Where did they go?" "I don't know. The transfers just say external account." I called the bank's emergency line and they said it'd have to come in tomorrow to file a dispute. I already knew who had taken the money. The question was whether Mom had figured it out yet. "Where's Jessica?" I asked carefully. Mom's face crumpled. "Upstairs." I confronted her. She said she borrowed it. She said it was an emergency and she'd pay me back. "What kind of emergency?" She wouldn't say exactly. She just kept saying they needed it and they'd pay it back soon. I took a deep breath, trying to contain my anger. "Mom, Jessica lied about having extra money to pay you. She's not paying rent. She's not contributing to bills. Brandon doesn't even have a job." Mom looked up sharply. "What?" "Brandon lost his job 2 months ago. That's why they're really here. They have nowhere else to go and no money. The whole story about needing family support was a lie." "How do you know that?" "I overheard Jessica on the phone before I moved out. She was bragging about manipulating you." Mom put her head in her hands. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs and Jessica appeared in the doorway. "I thought I heard voices," she said, her eyes narrowing when she saw me. "What are you doing here?" Mom called me. I said evenly. "About the $5,000 you stole. I didn't steal it. I borrowed it. There's a difference. You took it without asking. That's stealing, Jessica. It's family money, Jessica shot back. And we needed it. Well, pay it back once Brandon finds a new job. How long has Brandon been unemployed? I asked. Jessica's jaw tightened. That's not your business. It is when you're stealing from our mother to cover it up. I'm not covering anything up. We had expenses. The move here cost money, we had bills to pay, we needed to eat. So you stole from Mom instead of getting a job yourself. Jessica's face flushed red. You have no idea what we've been through. You've always had it easy, Marissa. Your perfect little nursing job, your perfect little life. Some of us have struggled. I've struggled too, I said, my voice rising. I gave up my apartment to take care of Mom after Dad died. I worked extra shifts to pay bills. I put my life on hold for 3 years. And you forced me out the second you needed a place to crash. Nobody forced you out, Jessica snapped. You chose to leave. Because you and Mom made it clear I wasn't wanted anymore. Mom finally spoke up, her voice small. Jessica, is it true? About Brandon's job. Jessica hesitated, then nodded stiffly. He lost his position 2 months ago. But he's been applying places. Hell, find something soon. And the money you promised to pay for rent. Another pause. We're a little short right now, but once Brandon's working again, well, catch up on everything. You lied to me, Mom said quietly. You made me push Marissa out because you said you'd help more financially. But you had no money at all. I did what I had to do, Jessica said defensively. You'd rather have Marissa here than your own daughter? She's always been your favorite anyway. That's not true, Mom said. But she didn't sound convincing. Jessica turned and stormed back upstairs. A minute later, I heard a door slam. Mom and I sat in silence. Then she started crying again, harder this time. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Marissa. I made a terrible mistake. I wanted to be angry. Part of me was angry. But mostly, I just felt sad. What are you going to do? I asked. I don't know. She's my daughter. I can't just throw her out. Even though she stole from you. She said she'll pay it back. Do you believe her? Mom didn't answer. I stayed another hour, making her tea and letting her cry. When I finally left, it was almost 2 a.m. I was exhausted but too wired to sleep. When I got home, I found a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of documents I couldn't quite make out in the small screen. I opened it and zoomed in. It was a quitclaim deed form. Pre-filled with Mom's name as the grantor and Jessica's name as the grantee. Below the photo was a message. This was on the kitchen table this afternoon. I think you should know. This is Lauren from next door. I stared at the phone, my heart racing. Jessica wasn't just stealing money. She was trying to steal the house. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept staring at the photo Lauren had sent, zooming in on the details. The quitclaim deed was partially filled out, with Mom's name clearly visible. If Mom signed it, she'd be signing over ownership of the house to Jessica. Completely. Legally. At 6 a.m, I gave up on sleep and called Lauren. I'm sorry to call so early, I said when she answered. But thank you for sending that photo. Where exactly did you see it? On the kitchen table yesterday afternoon, Lauren said. She sounded worried. Id stopped by to drop off some tomatoes from my garden. Your mom was in the bathroom and Jessica left me in the kitchen for a minute. I saw the papers and something felt wrong, so I took a quick photo. Marissa, I don't think your mom knows what she'd be signing. She doesn't, I said grimly. Jessica told her it was for refinancing. That's not refinancing. That's signing away the house. I know. After I hung up with Lauren, I called David, a lawyer friend Id met through the hospital. He occasionally did pro bono work for healthcare workers who needed legal advice. I sent him the photo and waited while he reviewed it. If your mother signs this, she'll no longer own the house. He confirmed. It would belong entirely to Jessica. Your mom would basically be a tenant in her own home. And Marissa, there's something else you should know. What? I did a quick search based on the information you gave me earlier. Your sister has been researching low-cost nursing facilities in the area. Multiple searches over the past week, according to the browser history you mentioned she's been using on your mom's laptop. My blood went cold. She's planning to put Mom in a home. It looks that way. Get the deed, convince your mother not to sign it, and then get her away from your sister. This is financial abuse, potentially elder abuse, and it could escalate. I thanked David and ended the call. Then I sat there trying to process what I'd learned. Jessica's plan was clear now. Get Mom to sign over the house, then convince her she was too old or too unwell to live alone, put her in a cheap facility. Keep the house and probably sell it for the cash. It was monstrous, and I had to stop it. That afternoon, I drove to the house. Jessica's car wasn't in the driveway, which meant she was probably out. Brandon's car was gone too. Perfect. I knocked and then used my old key, which surprisingly still worked. Mom was in the living room, folding laundry. She looked up in surprise when I walked in. "Marissa? What are you doing here?" "I needed to see you," I said, sitting down beside her. "Mom, we need to talk about Jessica. Not this again, please. Just listen, please." Mom sighed but nodded. "Has Jessica asked you to sign anything recently?" I asked carefully. Mom hesitated, then nodded. "Some paperwork. She said it was for refinancing the house to help with bills." "Mom, it's not refinancing. It's a quit-claim deed. If you sign it, you'll be giving Jessica the house. You won't own it anymore." Mom's face went pale. "What?" "No," she said, "it was just paperwork for the bank." I pulled out my phone and showed her the photo Lauren had sent. "This is what she wants you to sign. Look at the header. Quit-claim deed. Not refinancing, not a loan, a transfer of ownership." Mom took the phone with shaking hands and stared at the image. "I don't understand. Why would she do this?" "Because she needs money, and she thinks if she owns the house, she can sell it or borrow against it." "Mom, she's also been researching nursing homes." "What? Why would she do that?" "Because once she has the house, she needs to get you out of it. The easiest way to do that is to convince you that you need to be in a care facility." Mom looked like she might be sick. "She wouldn't do that. She's my daughter. She stole $5,000 from you. She lied about Brandon's job. She manipulated you into kicking me out." "Mom, please, you have to see what she's doing." Before Mom could respond, I heard a car door slam outside. We both froze. "She's home," Mom whispered. "Don't sign anything," I said urgently. "And don't let her know you know. We need to handle this carefully." But it was too late. The front door opened and Jessica walked in, stopping dead when she saw me sitting with Mom. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. "Visiting Mom," I said, standing up. "I'm allowed to do that. You need to leave." "No, I don't. This is Mom's house, not yours." Jessica's eyes narrowed. "What have you been telling her?" "The truth. About the quit-claim deed. About the nursing homes you've been researching. About your whole plan." Jessica's face went white, then red. "You've been spying on me. Your neighbor saw the paperwork you left on the kitchen table, and David checked the search history on Mom's laptop." "You weren't exactly subtle, Jessica. Get out," Jessica said, her voice shaking with rage. "Get out of my house right now. It's not your house," I said firmly. "And it never will be." Jessica took a step toward me, her hands clenched into fists, and for a second I thought she might actually try to hit me. But then Brandon appeared in the doorway behind her. "Jessica," he said quietly. "Stop, stay out of this, Brandon," she snapped without turning around. "No," he said, and there was something different in his voice. Something final. "I can't stay out of this anymore. This has gone too far." Jessica turned to look at him, confusion and anger on her face. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about all of it. The lies, the manipulation, the stealing. I'm done, Jessica. We're leaving. We're not going anywhere," Jessica said, but her voice had lost its confidence. "Yes, we are," Brandon said firmly. Today. And that's when everything finally fell apart. The living room was completely silent after Brandon spoke. Jessica stared at him like he'd just announced he was from another planet. "What did you just say?" she asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "I said we're leaving," Brandon repeated. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. "I should have said something weeks ago. This whole thing is wrong, and I can't be part of it anymore." "You don't know what you're talking about," Jessica said. But there was panic creeping into her voice now. "I know exactly what I'm talking about." Brandon walked further into the room, keeping his distance from Jessica, but addressing Mom and me. "I didn't know about the stolen money until a few days ago. I didn't know about the deed thing until just now. Jessica told me we were staying here temporarily while I looked for work. She said your mom offered, that it was all arranged. I had no idea she forced Marissa out." "Brandon, shut up," Jessica hissed. "No." He shook his head. "I've been shutting up for too long. These people deserve to know the truth." "We're married," Jessica said desperately. "You're supposed to be on my side. I am on your side. That's why I'm trying to stop you from completely destroying your relationships with your family. And from going to jail for theft and fraud." Jessica's face went even paler. "Nobody's going to jail? You stole $5,000? Brandon said flatly. "You were trying to trick your mother into signing over her house. You've been planning to put her in a nursing home against her will. Jessica, this is serious. This is criminal." Mom had been sitting silently through all of this, but now she spoke up, her voice small. "Brandon, is all of that true?" He nodded, looking miserable. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Patterson. I swear I didn't know most of it until recently. I've been so focused on job hunting and dealing with my own shame about losing my position that I wasn't paying attention to what Jessica was doing." "How could you not know?" Jessica demanded. "You live here too, because you lied to me." Brandon's voice rose for the first time. "You've been lying to me for months, Jessica. About money, about your plans, about everything. I did what I had to do to survive." Jessica shot back. "No, you did what you wanted to do because you thought you could get away with it." Brandon took a deep breath, visibly trying to calm himself. "And there's something else. Something I found out 2 days ago." Jessica's eyes widened. "Brandon, don't! You told me you were pregnant," he said, looking at Mom and me. 3 weeks ago, Jessica told me she was pregnant. She said that's why we needed to stay here, to save money for the baby. I believed her. It's the only reason I agreed to stay after I started suspecting something was wrong." "Brandon, stop it right now," Jessica said, her voice shaking. "I found the pregnancy test in the trash," he continued. "Negative. I confronted her about it yesterday. She admitted she lied. There's no baby. There never was." Mom gasped. I felt my own mouth fall open. Even knowing everything else Jessica had done, this somehow felt worse. More calculated. More cruel. "You lied about being pregnant," Mom whispered. "Jessica, how could you?" "It was just to buy us some time," Jessica said defensively. "I was going to tell him the truth eventually." "You were never going to tell him the truth," Brandon said warily. "Just like you were never going to pay back the money you stole. Just like you were never going to actually help your mom financially. You just say whatever you need to say to get what you want." "That's not fair," Jessica said, but her voice lacked conviction. "It's completely fair." Brandon looked at Mom again. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm truly sorry. For all of it. For not speaking up sooner. For letting myself be manipulated. For being part of this mess. My brother lives in Arizona and he's offered us a place to stay while I get back on my feet. We're going to take him up on that. Today." "We can't afford to go to Arizona," Jessica protested. "My brother already bought the bus tickets. They're waiting for us at the Greyhound station downtown. We leave in 3 hours." Jessica looked around the room desperately, like she was searching for an ally and finding none. Finally, her eyes landed on Mom. "Mom, please," she said, and her voice broke. "Don't let him do this. Don't let him take me away from you. I'm your daughter. I need you." You needed my money, Mom said quietly, and there was a strength in her voice I hadn't heard in years. You needed my house. You didn't need me, Jessica. If you'd needed me, you would have been honest. You would have asked for help instead of stealing. You would have cared about what happened to Marissa. You would have cared about me. I do care about you, Jessica insisted, tears starting to stream down her face now. I love you, Mom. Love doesn't look like this, Mom said, and she stood up, her hands clenched at her sides. Love doesn't steal. Love doesn't manipulate. Love doesn't lie about being pregnant to control someone. Jessica, I love you because you're my daughter, but I don't like who you've become, and I can't let you do this anymore. Jessica's face crumpled. She looked at Brandon, then at Mom, then at me. Her expression cycled through anger, desperation, and finally something that looked almost like understanding. You're all choosing her over me, she said, pointing at me. You're choosing perfect Marissa who never does anything wrong. I'm choosing what's right, Mom said firmly. And Marissa has been right about this from the beginning. Jessica grabbed her purse from the couch where Shed dropped it. Fine. Fine. You want me gone? I'll go. But don't call me when you need help. Don't call me when you're lonely. Don't call me ever again. She started toward the door, then stopped and turned back. You're going to regret this, Mom. All of you. You'll see. Then she was gone, the door slamming behind her. Brandon lingered for a moment. I'll make sure the stolen money gets paid back, he said quietly. It might take a while, but my brother said he'd help. And I'll keep her away from you all. I promise. Thank you, Brandon, Mom said. And good luck. I hope things get better for you. He nodded, gave us a sad smile, and left. The house was silent after he closed the door. Mom sank back onto the couch, and I sat beside her. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. Then Mom started to cry. Not angry tears or frustrated tears, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. I put my arms around her and let her cry, tears streaming down my own face. I'm so sorry, she kept saying between sobs. I'm so sorry, Marissa. I should have protected you. I should have seen what she was doing. I'm so sorry. It's okay, I whispered, even though it wasn't. Not really. Not yet. But maybe, eventually, it would be. Over the next 2 weeks, I found myself at Mom's house almost every evening after work. I didn't move back in permanently. My studio apartment had become my sanctuary, my proof that I could stand on my own. But I couldn't leave Mom alone to deal with the aftermath of Jessica's betrayal. The house felt different now. Lighter somehow, despite everything that had happened. Mom had immediately started cleaning out the master bedroom, boxing up the things Jessica had brought in and removing the gaudy decorations Shed added. She asked if I wanted the room back, but I declined. Keep it as yours, I told her. Or make it a guest room. But it shouldn't be mine anymore. I've moved on. She nodded, understanding what I meant. Things couldn't go back to exactly how they were before. We both needed to move forward differently. The stolen money situation resolved itself more quickly than I'd expected. True to his word, Brandon's brother in Arizona helped set up a payment plan, $500 a month until the $5,000 was repaid. Mom received the first payment within a week of their departure. She showed me the bank notification with tears in her eyes. I didn't think they'd actually do it, she admitted. I thought Jessica would find a way out of it. Brandon's a good person, I said. He just got tangled up with the wrong one. We also filed a police report about the theft, though Mom ultimately decided not to press charges as long as the money was being returned. The detective we spoke with advised us to monitor our credit reports carefully and change all of Mom's banking passwords, which we did immediately. Mom had changed in other ways too. She started going to a grief support group at the community center, something Shed refused to do after Dad died. She said Shed finally realized that Shed'd been trying to fill the dad-shaped hole in her life with Jessica's presence, desperate for family closeness even when it was toxic. I was so lonely after your father passed, she told me one evening over dinner. We'd fallen into a routine of cooking together twice a week. I think part of me believed that if I could just keep Jessica close, I wouldn't feel so alone. But real closeness can't be forced, and it can't come at the cost of hurting someone else. She reached across the table and took my hand. You were here all along, Marissa. You were the one who showed up, who stayed, who cared. And I took that for granted because I was so focused on the child who was absent that I couldn't see the one who was present. I squeezed her hand, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. One evening in mid-November, about 6 weeks after Jessica had left, Mom asked me to come over for what she called an important conversation. I arrived to find her sitting at the kitchen table with a manila folder in front of her. "Sit down, sweetheart," she said, and something in her tone made me nervous. I sat. Mom opened the folder and pulled out a bank statement. "Your father opened a savings account about 15 years ago," she began. "It was supposed to be for your future, for a house down payment, or more education, or whatever you needed when you were ready to really start your life." She slid the statement across the table to me. I looked down at the numbers and felt my breath catch. $38,412. Mom. I don't understand. Your father contributed to it regularly, a little bit from each paycheck. After he died, I kept making deposits when I could. Not much, but something. I never told Jessica about it because your father specifically said this account was for you. He worried that if Jessica knew about it, she'd pressure us to use it for something else. Tears were streaming down my face now. He set this up for me. He saw you, Marissa. He saw how hard you worked, how much you gave, how you always put others first. He wanted to make sure you had something that was just yours, something that could give you options and freedom. Mom pulled out another piece of paper. It was the account information. Everything I'd need to transfer the money into my own name. "It's yours," she said firmly. "It was always supposed to be yours. I'm just sorry it took me so long to give it to you." I got up and hugged her, both of us crying. The money was significant, sure, but it was more than that. It was proof that Dad had seen my value, that he'd planned for my future, that I'd been loved and appreciated even when I couldn't always feel it. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you, Mom." The next week, I opened my own savings account and transferred the money. I used $3,000 to furnish my apartment properly with actual furniture instead of hand-me-downs and curb finds. I bought a real bed, a comfortable couch, a dining table. I hung pictures on the walls and bought plants for the windowsill. Angela came over to see the transformation and whistled. "Look at you. All grown up and settled." "It feels good," I admitted. "It feels really good." At work, things were going well too. My supervisor called me into her office one afternoon and offered me a promotion to charge nurse on my unit. More responsibility, better pay, and a clear path toward management if I wanted it. "You've proven yourself over and over," she told me. "You're reliable, compassionate, and you lead by example. We'd be lucky to have you in this role." I accepted immediately. I also started dating again, something I hadn't done in years. At a hospital fundraiser in early December, I met Colin, a paramedic who made me laugh within the first 5 minutes of conversation. We started seeing each other regularly, taking things slow but enjoying each other's company. "You seem different lately," Angela observed one day during our lunch break. "Lighter, happier." "I feel different," I said. "I feel like I finally got my life back, like I'm living for me, instead of just trying to keep everyone else happy." "Good," Angela said firmly. "You deserve to be happy, Marissa. You always did." Meanwhile, I got occasional updates about Jessica through Mom. She and Brandon were still in Arizona. Brandon had found work as a manager at a hardware store, and they were renting a small apartment. Jessica had gotten a job at a call center but apparently hated it. She'd sent Mom a few bitter text messages in the first weeks after leaving, but eventually those had stopped. Mom had tried to maintain a relationship, calling every few weeks, but Jessica rarely answered and never called back. "I think she's ashamed," Mom said sadly. "Which is probably healthy. Actually, she should be ashamed. But I still hope that someday she'll be ready to really apologize and try to make amends. And if she doesn't? I asked. Mom sighed. Then I'll have to accept that I have one daughter who wants a relationship with me, and one who doesn't. And I'll be grateful for the one I have. She smiled at me, and I smiled back. My studio apartment had become a real home. My job was fulfilling. I had a man in my life who respected me and made me feel valued. My relationship with Mom was stronger than it had ever been, built on honesty instead of obligation. For the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. 6 months after Jessica left, I got the call I'd been half expecting but hoping wouldn't come. It was a Saturday afternoon in April. I was at my apartment with Colin, trying to decide where to go for dinner, when my phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen. "Hi, Mom," I answered. "What's up?" "Marissa." Her voice was tense. "Jessica is here." I felt my stomach drop. "What?" "She showed up about an hour ago. She's in the living room. She wants to talk to both of us." I looked at Colin, who was watching me with concern. "I'll be right there." 15 minutes later, I was pulling into Mom's driveway. Jessica's car, older and more beat up than I remembered, was parked on the street. I sat in my car for a moment, gathering my courage, then went inside. Jessica was sitting on the couch where she'd sat 6 months earlier when this whole nightmare began. She looked different. Thinner, tired, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup. She looked up when I walked in, and something flickered across her face. Shame, maybe. Or regret. "Hi, Marissa," she said quietly. "Jessica." I sat down in the armchair across from her. Mom was standing near the kitchen doorway, her arms crossed, watching carefully. "I came to apologize," Jessica said, and her voice cracked slightly. "I've been going to therapy. My therapist said I needed to take responsibility for what I did and try to make amends." "Okay," I said carefully. "I'm listening. I was wrong. About everything. I manipulated Mom. I stole from her. I lied to Brandon. I forced you out of your home. I was selfish and cruel, and I'm sorry." The words sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced them, but there was genuine emotion behind them too. "I lost everything because of what I did." She continued. "Brandon left me 3 months ago. He couldn't trust me anymore after everything that happened. I'm living alone now, working a job I hate, barely making rent, and I deserve all of it. I know that." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," she said. "I know I don't deserve that. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I did was wrong, and that I'm sorry. Really. Truly sorry." I looked at Mom, who was watching Jessica with a mixture of sadness and wariness. Then I looked back at my sister and took a deep breath. "I appreciate the apology," I said slowly. "And I'm glad you're getting help. But Jessica, an apology doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't give me back the time I spent being hurt and angry. It doesn't give Mom back the money you stole or the trust you broke." Jessica nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know. If you want to rebuild a relationship with us, it's going to take time. Years, maybe. And it starts with you proving through actions, not just words, that you've actually changed." Mom stepped forward then, coming to stand beside my chair. "I love you, Jessica," she said, and her voice was steady. "You're my daughter and I always will love you. But I won't let you hurt me or Marissa again. If you want to be part of this family, you need to do the work. Real work, consistent work, therapy, making better choices, showing up in honest ways." She paused, then continued. "I'm willing to talk to you once a month on the phone. That's what I can offer right now. We can build from there if you show me you're serious about changing. But you cannot move back in. You cannot ask for money. You cannot make demands. Those are my boundaries." Jessica looked devastated but nodded. "Okay. I understand." I stood up. "I'm glad you're working on yourself, Jessica. I really am. But I need more time before I'm ready to have regular contact with you. When I'm ready, I'll reach out. Until then, respect my space." Jessica looked like she wanted to argue, but instead she just nodded again. Okay. She stood up, gathered her purse, and walked to the door. At the threshold, she turned back. I really am sorry, she said one more time. Then she was gone. Mom and I stood together in the living room, listening to her car start and drive away. Neither of us said anything for a long moment. Are you okay? I finally asked. I think so, Mom said. Are you? Yeah, I am. And I realized it was true. Seeing Jessica again, hearing her apology, it didn't hurt the way I thought it would. It moved on. It built a life that didn't need her approval or presence to be complete. Mom and I went back to the kitchen and made tea. We sat at the table, the same table where so much drama had unfolded over the past months, and just talked. About work, about Colin, about Mom's book club, about normal, everyday things. Later that evening, back at my apartment with Colin, I found myself reflecting on everything that had happened. The betrayal, the pain, the slow rebuilding, and now this tentative step toward closure. You okay? Colin asked, reaching for my hand. I'm thinking, I said. About family and boundaries and what we owe to people who hurt us. And what did you conclude? I smiled. That I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. For so long, I thought being a good daughter meant sacrificing everything, even my own dignity. I thought love meant always saying yes, always being available, always putting myself last. But real love doesn't demand that you disappear. Real family doesn't ask you to erase yourself so someone else can take up all the space. I learned that boundaries aren't walls. They're bridges to healthier relationships. I learned that walking away from toxicity isn't abandonment, it's self-preservation. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for someone is let them face the consequences of their choices. My mom and I are closer now than we've ever been, because our relationship is built on honesty and mutual respect, not guilt and obligation. Jessica may never fully change, but that's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to myself, to the life I'm building, and to the people who genuinely cherish me. If you're in a situation where family is using you, manipulating you, or pushing you aside when it suits them, hear this. You are not selfish for protecting your peace. You are not cruel for setting boundaries. You are not wrong for choosing yourself. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most will hurt you the deepest, but that doesn't mean you deserve it. And it doesn't mean you have to stay. I walked away from a toxic situation, and I found myself on the other side. Stronger, happier, free. The next morning, I woke up in my apartment with sunlight streaming through the windows. Colin was still asleep beside me. I got up quietly and made coffee, standing at my kitchen window looking out at the city. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Brunch today? My treat. I smiled and typed back, absolutely, 11, perfect. Love you. Love you too. I'd started saving for a down payment on a small house. With the money Dad had left me as a foundation and my new salary, I'd be ready to buy in another year or so. My own place, with a yard and room for a life that was entirely mine. Angela and I had plans to go hiking next weekend. Colin wanted to introduce me to his parents next month. I had a performance review coming up at work that my supervisor had hinted would include another raise. My life was small in some ways. No drama, no chaos, no constant crisis. Just steady, peaceful forward momentum. And it was perfect. I heard Colin stirring in the bedroom and went to join him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Good morning, he said sleepily, accepting the cup with a smile. Good morning, I replied, settling in beside him. This was home. Not a house or a location, but this feeling, this peace, this certainty that I was valued and loved and exactly where I belonged. I'd fought for it. I'd walked away from what was familiar to find what was right. And I'd won. Not because Jessica had lost or because I'd gotten revenge. I'd won because I'd chosen myself. Because I'd learned my worth and refused to accept anything less. And that, I realized, was the greatest victory of all. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between family loyalty and your own well-being? How did you handle it? What boundaries did you have to set? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to hear more stories about real struggles and real victories. Share this with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to put themselves first. And remember, choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it brought you comfort, courage, or maybe just the reminder that you're not alone in whatever you're facing. Take care of yourselves out there. You're worth it.